Good afternoon once more from my side. I would like to welcome all of you to the third panel of the first parallel session of the conference. Some of you may heard, but just to once more present myself, my name is Aleksandra Ozanoska and I'm professor at the Institute of Economics, and I will be moderating this panel. According to the agenda, 5 papers will be presented in this panel. In order to get through the agenda successfully, we have provided time at the end of the panel, as in the previous panels, to address any discussions and questions you might have. Just to remind that each presentation should last no more than 10 minutes. Therefore, I'm kindly asking all of you who will present a paper to mind your scheduled time. Just to be on sure, I will signal you at the 8 minutes, so you will know how much time you have left to finish the presentation. All participants, as you know, will be allowed to take part in the discussions or to ask questions, as we mentioned previously, by raising a digital hand or writing in the chat area. And once more, I need to remind you that the conference is being recorded. So now I think that we can begin with the panel. First paper which is going to be presented is titled as Perceptions of Local Economic Development in North Macedonia, a comparative analysis made by Natasha Trajkova-Najdovska, Mary Boškovska, and Maria Midovska-Petkovska. It will be presented by our colleague Natasha Trajkova-Najdovska. Dear Natasha, the microphone is yours. Please share your presentation.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. I hope it can be seen. I just shared the screen. Is it visible or not?
The screen, yes. The presentation, no.
All right. Shall we share just the window then?
The window, yes. Yeah. It's more sure.
Yeah.
Now it's okay. You can start.
Okay. Right. My name is Natasha Trajkova-Najdovska, and I come from the University St. Clement Ohridski in Bitola, and I shall present today the paper which was written by, which is work in progress actually, with two of my colleagues, Mary Boškovska and Maria Midovska-Petkovska. We all come from the University St. Clement Ohridski, and the paper is titled Perceptions of Local Economic Development in North Macedonia and Comparative Analysis. Here follows the content of my presentation. First of all, I will explain the motivation for research, theoretical background, data methodology, results, and policy recommendations. Obviously, what was the motivation for the research? Local growth is a young concept, and it's considering identification and use of resources and potential in a geographically defined community. In our case, this will be municipality. Many studies have showed interest in local growth issues, mainly for developed countries. However, in the case of North Macedonia, there are rare studies which discuss local growth, and mainly these are reports from the World Bank, IBRD, and so on and so forth. So there is lack of studies or gap in the literature discussing local growth and local issues. What is the aim of our research? To examine the relationship between objective measures of local conditions by aggregated survey of perceptions of those conditions. Obviously, the perceptions of citizens within each municipality is very important for the municipality management, but also it's important for the national policies because obviously the municipalities officials need to have to make evidence-based policy, but also on a national level, when the support system is designed for the municipalities, it is good to have some sort of indication how the municipalities have done their work in the previous period. What is the theoretical background? The theoretical background is mainly in the political literature. Obviously, in the political science, local electorates should hold local political officials accountable for the local conditions. This is political statement, more or less, but it is tested in various studies based on various questionnaires. And various local conditions are tested, such as the state of local economy, taxes, schools, culture, cultural offer, how is the state of the public spaces, traffic, and all these factors are actually indicators of local growth, and they are related to the election outcomes. So, based on the previous studies, which are named here, The questionnaire was made in order to assess the perceptions of the citizens within each municipality. The questions were related to the information, involvement, level of satisfaction with various services that municipalities offer, governance, and so on. And the questionnaire was designed in order to see how the municipalities actually respond to the needs of the citizens. Do the quality and do the citizens are happy with the quantity and quality of services that they are given by the municipalities? What was the modeling methodology? Obviously, the eclectic approach was used in order to measure or benchmark the performance of municipalities across the mentioned areas. The data are gathered by the internet survey, which was measuring the perceptions. And by now, we don't have enough respondents, but we hope that we will gather more response to the questionnaire. The dependent variable is value for money. The question is, did you get value for the tax money that you paid to the municipality? And then the model is controlling for socioeconomic variables such as age, gender, household size, income, region in which the citizen is living, place of residence, cultural offer, traffic, public spaces, and most of the variables are categorical, categorical variables, meaning that 1 was unsatisfied and 5 was excellent. The model which was used in the modeling procedure is Probit model. Obviously, various models were tested, Logit as well, but Probit showed to be better fitting for the data. And based on the information criteria, the dependent variable was 1 or 0, a dummy variable, yes, for if there was value for money and 0 otherwise. And based on the information criteria, the best model was chosen till now. Obviously, we do expect some more respondents to answer to the question. However, I will present the results which are in progress now. So this is the Probit regression. The main dependent variable was regressed on independent variables, and various tests were performed, such as link test for functional form, multicollinearity test, goodness of fit test, and all the tests perform well till now. Hopefully, we will progress with more respondents, as I said. What is indicative? Gender seems to have statistically significant coefficient. Employment, income of people has statistically significant coefficient, meaning that people with higher income are more critical of the municipality's work. Then the place, the town themselves is not significant, meaning that the problems of the municipalities are difficult everywhere. Household size is not significant. Then the perception of corruption on the municipality level is significant, is giving significant coefficient. Public space, how the public spaces are maintained is not statistically significant. However, the cultural offer and the indicator about measuring the quality of communal services are statistically significant coefficients, suggesting that people are sensitive to the conditions in their local community. So if they're not satisfied, they will sort of translate it to the data that we were gathering. What are the main findings? Obviously, this is a study that measures only perceptions of the people. So the perceptions of local conditions should gain importance in wider discourse, not only for the municipalities officials, not only on a national level, but in order to include actually citizens more into decision making, but also to position them better and to hold local officials responsible. Obviously, we do have history where we do have change of local governments, but no one seems to be responsible for the poor quality of the services that municipalities provide. Municipalities underperform, probably in long periods. I didn't present here the descriptive statistics of the questionnaire, but the staggering data were really revealed, meaning that 90% of the people are sort of feeling that there is weak administrative system in the municipalities, weak planning, weak use of resources. So the descriptive statistics which will be discussed in the paper are not here presented, but are very important. As I said, seems that women employed in other than public sector, higher income people, perception of corruption, perception of communal services and cultural supply are statistically significant, which means that this sort of model is only putting into words what we already know about our municipalities. However, the region, place of residence, household size are not significant variables. In general, the findings suggest that the municipalities have poor capacity till now, probably not in people, because we don't have the data on how many people are employed in each of the municipalities, but in the systems. So that needs sort of sorting out. What were the limitations of the research? Obviously, survey bias. It is an internet-based, so some people will be excluded. Self-assessment bias problem in the surveys. Dominant answers were from Pelagonia region, so we need to work on this. Urban versus rural bias. Mainly the respondents were from the urban municipalities rather than the rural. What was the next problem? Lack of basic data and indicators for tracking the work of municipalities. Obviously, this is only measuring of perceptions, but in order to track the work of the municipalities, we need data coming from them on the amounts, on the completed project, started project, on the resources used for each project, and so on and so forth. But this data seems to be not that much transparent at this point of view of time. Also, what is needed is panel data, which means we need to have time trends in order to see whether the municipalities are better off or worse off. For now, we have only discussions, oh, the previous did this, previous local government did this and that, and so on and so forth. But with the data for analysis, that would be more sort of grounded in the evidence. And finally, what are the broad policy recommendations? Defining the minimum norms and standards and indicators in measurable values, defining data that must be collected by the municipality, creating monitoring framework in order to track work of the municipalities, quality control by independent body, and longer-term strategies connecting with the national government. Obviously, this is only a first step, measuring perceptions, but more deep and more extended work is needed in order to see the real work or to assess the real work of municipalities. Thank you very much. That was my presentation.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Natasha. It was very interesting presentation, very interesting inputs you gave us. Now you can stop your share. Now we can go to the next paper. Author of the next paper, which will be presented, is Mila Mitreva. Her paper is titled as Investment Trends of Institutional Investors. The word is yours. Please share your presentation.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I will present now. Just a second. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, now it's okay.
Okay, I would like to say that it's my pleasure to be part of this International Scientific Conference, Contemporary Challenges of Economic Growth and Sustainability of Business. I consider this to be a great experience for me, where I can, and also an opportunity to share my research. As you have mentioned, the title of my paper is Investment Trends of Institutional Investors. Before continuing to the details and the results that I got, firstly, I would like to theoretically represent what institutional investors are. Therefore, I can say that as literature shows, institutional investors represent legal entities that manage and invest the money of other people, which are and they are also synonymous with the classification as intermediary investors. So they represent important part of the global financial system due to their contribution to the capital markets. Therefore, we can say that developed capital markets are usually characteristics of developed countries, while less developed capital markets are usually characteristic of the developing countries. However, institutional investors are considered to be major players not only in the developed markets, but in the emerging markets as well. So it is worth mentioning that institutional investors are mainly consisted of pension funds, insurance companies, and investment funds, as well as mutual funds. So the importance of each of the institutional investor usually differentiates among the countries. In some countries, pension funds play the main role, which is the case for Australia, Israel, etc. While in other countries, such as Norway and Germany, for example, insurance companies are considered to be the most important institutional investors. In this slide, I have a presentation of the assets under management of all of the institutional investors. So assets under management usually refers to the total market value of the investments that an entity or a person manages on a client's behalf. The total asset management industry since the global COVID-19 pandemic has been growing, and it has reached 103 trillion US dollars in 2020. Interesting achievement is found that institutional investors have reached almost 61 trillion US dollars, or 59% of the global markets. However, the asset allocation of institutional investors has been changing in the past several years. In the early 1970s, pension funds mostly invested in domestic fixed income instruments. In the following years, after the late 70s in the previous century, institutional investors, they started to reshape their investment strategies by investing more in equity markets with a long-term strategic allocation of 60% equity and 40% of fixed income. This is the characteristic for the assets under management of institutional investors. And here in this slide, I will present something about the investment trends of each of the institutional investors. So it can be said that digitalization, the aging population, as well as the climate change are considered the key factors that affected the long-term investing perspective of the institutional investors in the previous 2021 year. It is worth mentioning that the investment activities of the pension funds are usually oriented toward private equity, infrastructure, and venture capital. Literature shows that pension funds are moving away from investing in stocks and bonds because investing in alternative has shown to provide greater returns and lower risks. However, in the past years, institutional investors recognize the infrastructure investment as an important asset class because it ensures diversification. So the long-term orientation of pension liabilities matches the infrastructure projects, which are generally considered to be long-term investments. So in addition to that, infrastructure investments are beneficial because they decrease the sensibility to the increasing rates of inflation. So from traditional point of view, institutional investors mainly have been investing in shares and other equity. However, the literature shows that institutional investors under management also is mostly composed of bonds, loans, and deposits. And later in the slides, we can see actually in what do the institutional investors mostly invest in. In this slide, we have a table where the investment strategies of pension funds are presented. Actually, in this slide is presented the asset allocation of the pension funds as percentage of GDP. More specifically, we can see results for several countries such as Austria, Belgium, Finland, and Hungary. In Austria, the pension fund's asset allocation does not contribute that much for the GDP, and the most interesting results are in Hungary, especially for bills and bonds, which are with the highest percentage. In this table, we can see that throughout the years, the numbers they do not change drastically, but instead they follow somehow a constant pattern. Here we have the investment strategies of insurance companies. Actually, in this slide is presented the asset allocation of insurance companies as percentage of their total investment. So in the last column are presented the amounts of the total investments of the insurance companies for these countries. So therefore, as a general conclusion, we can say that the insurance companies in these countries mostly invest in bills and bonds, followed up by investment in equity, loans, cash, and deposits. And in the end, we have investment in land and building. However, there are some differences between them. For instance, insurance companies in Belgium invest more in land and building compared to the other countries, while insurance companies in Finland invest more in cash and deposits compared to the insurance companies in the rest of the countries that are presented in this table. Here on this slide are presented the financial assets of the insurance companies as percentage of GDP throughout the years starting from 2014 to 2019. Therefore, we can say that Belgium drastically outstands the insurance companies of the other countries, which is followed up by Austria, Finland, and in the end we have Hungary. In this slide are presented the financial assets as percentage of GDP of the investment funds. For each of the country, there are not drastic distinctions from the period from 2014 to 2019. Nevertheless, the highest percentages can be detected in Finland, then Austria, Belgium, and here as well as the last country we have Hungary. So from all of the numbers that are presented in this table and the literature that it was shown, it can be concluded that there are differences between each of the institutional investors for each of the countries. So as a general conclusion, it can be said that regarding their investment strategies, they are still more oriented toward the traditional type of investing. Actually, they mostly invest in bills and bonds, and they least invest in infrastructure projects. So what it can be concluded, and as a further suggestion, is that, and as the literature has shown to us, is that governments among the countries should stimulate this type of institutional investors to invest more in infrastructure projects because for sure it will provide them greater return in the following years. And it is considered a long-term strategy that can be beneficial for each of them. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mila, for your interesting presentation made on time. Now we can continue. According to the agenda, next is the presentation of the paper Climate Change and its Implications on the Financial Risks, which is written by Biljana Hadživelkova, Milica Miloševska-Gavrovska, and Maja Stevkova-Šterijeva. The presenter will be Biljana Hadživelkova. Please share your presentation, Biljana.
I will try now to share the screen. Just tell me if you can see it.
Yes, it's okay. We can see it. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So we can start. First of all, thank you for the opportunity, and I would like to congratulate on the anniversary. I hope you will have a fruitful conference and discussions. The topic is climate change and its implication on financial risks. The question that this research is addressing is whether climate change impacts financial stability. There are two hypotheses of the research, and the first one is that companies in the Republic of North Macedonia are aware of the risk and consequences of climate change, but they do little in terms of measuring the carbon emissions or taking steps to mitigate the effects of climate change. And the second hypothesis of the research is that the group of large banks in Macedonia in the analyzed period, that is 2019 and 2020, are not pursuing active credit corporate policies that incorporate climate risks. However, in the past few years, several credit lines are implemented through the commercial banks in cooperation with international financial institutions in order to foster the green financing in the country. The methods used in this research are survey questionnaire for the companies and comparative analysis of the corporate credit portfolio on the group of large banks. Climate change is a very accurate topic today, and its manifestations and consequences are felt throughout the entire economy and thereupon the financial system. Basically, two main types of climate risk persist according to the literature, and those are physical and transition risks. The physical risks are due to changes in weather patterns, in the rise of temperature, droughts, floods, etc. And the transition risks are a result of a policy shift towards low carbon economy, changes in technology, changes in consumer preferences, etc. Basically, now we will come to the results because of the limited time. The first thing is the questionnaire for the companies. The targeted companies are the ones in Republic of Macedonia that are dealing in sectors that can be considered as carbon emitters. Those are electricity production from coal, then mining and metals, food processing industry, chemical industry, textile industry, agriculture, etc. So the companies that are interviewed answered that basically they consider physical risks as higher threats to the company than the transition one. Nearly 2/3 of the company have this answer. Then if we take the answers of whether they consider this on future performance of the company, the risks, then very high percentage of 83.33 answered that do, and the ones that don't, as a reason for this, say that it is a lack of knowledge on the subject and the limited resources. Then we go for the question if they measure or quantify these impacts on the future financial performance. We have a large, the majority of the companies answered that didn't, and they do not see opportunities as a result of climate changes. And on the question whether they make disclosure on the company's activities connected to measurement or mitigation and adaptation of climate changes, a high percentage of 85 answered that they don't. And on the question, do they consider purchase of new technology as a replacement of the current one? Then we have a consideration of 71.67% as a positive answer, but they not make calculation on such investment costs. If for a positive decision to enter into a bank loan for this purpose, majority of the company answered that they consider favorable credit conditions, guarantee collateral schemes, and subsidies of interest or investment to contribute towards a positive attitude for investment. But a very high percentage of the company, 80%, they do not consider themselves ready if the government decides to impose a price on carbon emissions as a measure to mitigate the climate changes. Now we go to the results for the banking sector in Republic of North Macedonia. Here we have many numbers, but for the short time we will describe only several of them. Basically, the comparative analysis of the corporate credit portfolio of the group of large banks indicates that the participation of each of the large banks in the group of large banks in the total corporate credit portfolio or in the group corresponds with the participation of the portfolio one. Here we should define what is portfolio one. That is exposure of the corporate to corporate clients that are dealing in these sectors that I previously mentioned as carbon emitters. So here we have the also analysis of the participation of portfolio 1 in each of the total corporate loan portfolio in each of the banks. Here we can see that Stupanska Banka has the largest participation of this portfolio in its total corporate loan portfolio, and Halk Bank has the lowest one. Also, we have analyzed the data on the side of national banks that shows the green financing in the banking sector by a group of banks. And here the data, what is interesting is that the medium-sized bank have currently at the end of 2021 the largest participation of green loans, that is 52% in the total amount of green loans in the banking sector, and the large banks have 47%. The small sized banks are with around 1% participation. However, what is interesting here is that the amount of green borrowings is much lower than the amount of green loans, which shows that the banks are approving green financing also from their own funds, not only from the credit lines, because the amount of green borrowings in the balance sheet of the banks is the credit lines that are approved for this purpose. Therefore, we come to the conclusions, which are that climate change impacts every aspect of our life, including financial stability, and the banks and companies in the Republic of North Macedonia are in their early stages of developing green strategy. But the financial stability and the climate stability should be considered as two public goods, because the maintenance of each of them is highly dependent on the other one. And the risk to financial stability will be minimized if the transition begins early and follows a predictable path, and the banks as financial intermediaries, because they regulate cash flows, can highly contribute to reduction in the harmful effects of climate changes. They are not direct emitters of carbon, but through their financing, they can make significant contribution to the goals of Paris Agreement in alignment with the 2-degree world. Thank you for your attention. The questions will be left for later, I hope.
Thank you, Biljana, for your great points and presentation. I'm seeing a raised hand by Miki Runtev. If it's something about questions or discussion, we have time predicted for it.
No, just a mistake.
Okay. Thank you once more. The presentation of the next paper will be held by its author, Miki Runtev. The title of the paper is The Impact of Military Expansion and the Effect of the COVID-19 Pandemic on the International Economy. Miki, microphone is yours. Please, you can share your presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Do you see my presentation?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, I'm Miki Runtev I'm coming from European University, and my title of article, The Impact of Military Expansion and Effect of the COVID-19 Pandemic on the International Economic. The motive for writing this article is to answer the questions of what are the new indicators of international economic and how they affect it. Is it to great turbulence with the COVID-19 crisis and recently with the military expansion in Ukraine, but also indicate sorry, and to what extent international economics has had a positive impact on overall social, economic, and financial relations in markets around the world. This article connects the issues of the relationship between international economic policy on the one and the monitoring and analyzing of the national finances of countries on other hand. The main research question refers to what tendencies and moments in the international economic and financial market and are facing in condition in the market turbulence, political and military crisis. Different motives are the reason for the international tendencies change effect caused by COVID pandemic and the military expansion in Ukraine. On the other hand, an attempt is made to predict what will happen in the following years in the post-war period. But the question is not just about reviewing the economics, but how to make a better economy that will be more stability and more responsive for the future shocks. The reason for the new complex situation in the international economic and financial relations caused by the military expansion in Ukraine. Sorry. In addition, the uses in the fashion of the global trade policy has become characteristic. When speaking about the globalized era, those relations still deserve special analysis, monitoring, and control. Namely, the growth tendencies exceeded this potential after the severe recession of the 2020, which the financial market recovered. While the main focus in the 2021 was a strong recovery of the process economy, despite all the consequences caused by the COVID-19 crisis. The purpose of the article is to show the structure and dynamic of the movement of international economic and financial market as they went through a process of crisis. Also, the purpose of the article is to cover the new characteristic indicator or in the process of a new condition faced by the international economic situation of military crisis. But this goal is far more complex and should be subject to global financial market system and extremely complex and rigid economy. According the purpose of this article is generally divided into qualitative methodology studies which bring consumers. An illustration in just less 10 years since last major financial crisis, international economic has once again faced two major crises and minus turbulence and uncertainty. The following results are the expert from the research, great and correct conception of international economic and financial market from highlight the developing countries to poor developing and the developing countries which will ensure the stability and externally of their economics. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Runtev. Now the last paper which will be presented on this panel is Digital Innovations in Banking for Economic Development, made by Maria Pendevska and Olivia Filipovska. According to their registration form, both of them should present it, or if I'm wrong, one of them will present it. The mic is yours, so please share the presentation. We are not hearing you. We cannot hear you. No. No, we have a problem with. Please try again.